and I don't mean just a motion. Zoology is kind of one of my specialties, I would say. And then the general topics of human anatomy and physiology, so it's all animal type stuff. Although I do like botany and the ecology is really important particularly for today's world. Emily, I would like to thank you for this outline that we're going to start with today. And what I'm going to do is to go through, you might want to look at some things that I've written if you had a chance. I know I got them on Blackboard last night. Sorry it was a little later than it was my fault. It wasn't Emily's fault. A busy day yesterday. But anyway, the outline is there. You might want to pick up some of the things that I've written as highlights on there as well. So what are animals? So zoology obviously is the biological study of animals, and it looks like the study of zoos, right? Animals, even though they have botanical specimens and things there too, the primary emphasis is usually on animals. Before we can get into a division of the study of invertebrates, which do not have a backbone, and they are what we would say are the lesser complex in terms of the achievements in morphology and so forth that they have, versus the vertebrates, which are the backbone animals. And so there are two big divisions: invertebrates, which have no backbone, and vertebrates. And what we're going to look at as we get through this introductory terminology for the differences between animals, we will always be kind of comparing. It's sort of a comparison zoology of, okay, what does this group have that this group does not have? And which is considered to be more complex. And so, in fact, I'm working on trying to come up with a chart maybe that can help you when we actually get into the grouping. So today we're doing the introductory terminology. Again, thanks to Emily. And so who are animals? So your concepts are, you always want to read your concepts in your textbook because they always convey very important overview information. Are animals autotrophic or heterotrophic? Heterotrophic. They eat other foods, and we are an animal, by the way. I'm not trying to insult anybody. Please, that is not a condescension by any means, but are we heterotrophic? Mm-hmm. Yes, my dream was always that if I could bioengineer, I would actually help to insert chloroplast genes into the cells of people, and we wouldn't have to spend money on food, and we would go out into the courtyard or some light-based area, and instead of spending money on food, and then we wouldn't have to worry about addictions to food or, the other types of things. We would just make our own food and become photosynthetic. That's a comical type of dream, but we are heterotrophic. And we have to eat other things, and we know that everything we eat can be traced back to plants, because plants are our main producers that produce all the world's food. So do animals have eukaryotic or prokaryotic cells? Eukaryotic. EU means true nuts, which indicates the nucleus with the nuclear membrane, like a nut in the shell. Okay, so we are eukaryotic, just like the plants. All the plants we studied last were eukaryotic as well. Are animals unicellular or multicellular? multicellular with a lot of specialization as we go up the stairs. And I'm talking about the ladder of the stairs of complexity within the animal kingdom, and the different tissues, the different organs and systems that develop. Okay, so right away, nutritional mode, we cannot construct all of the molecules we need. We have to eat other things, and that's what this first concept says. So the true code word is heterotrophy. Okay, who are animals? Cell structures, photosynthesation, the eukaryotes. We do not, please be sure you know this, and I know you know this, but re-emphasize, animal cells do not have cell walls. Now we do have protein components that help to support the cells somewhat, and keratin and other types of connective type tissues. But animals have no cell walls. In other words, there's a cell membrane, but there's no cell wall around it to make it rigid. So it makes us all more vulnerable to osmoregulatory problems and issues, like we drink salt water. We can dehydrate ourselves very easily, and affect other organs. We know that the order of complexity, cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up systems, which make up the whole organism. We still remember that, right? Okay, let's go down here. Reproduction and development of animals. Most animals reproduce sexually. Cleavage. Let's talk about cleavage. This has to do with the succession of mitotic cell divisions without cell growth between the divisions. This is when the egg and the sperm form, and the first cell is called the zygote, and then the zygote divides into 2, into 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and so forth. And we're going to study more about that in just a few minutes. They don't leave time for the cell to grow and add more protein in the cell, like protein synthesis, like a normal cell cycle. Cleavage. That's what cleavage is. So it's a whole bunch of cell divisions to form like a ball, where there's no real growth within the cell before it divides again. It just doesn't continue. So it's on automatic cycling. A blastula is a multicellular stage which in many animals takes the form of a hollow ball. Gastrulation, and actually the gastrula would be the structure. Gastrulation would be the process.
Can you zoom it in a little bit? I'm sorry.
What?
Is there any way to zoom that in a little
Yes,
bit?
I'm
I don't
sorry.
know how to.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for telling me that. Sorry about that. So gastrulation would be the process of forming layers of cells within this mitotic ball that will develop into adult body parts. Some other terms, larva would be a sexually immature form in an animal that is morphologically distinct from the adult. I love amphibians, and they're the most, probably one of the most sensitive animals to differences in the environment. Frogs, toads, salamanders. Yes.
Exactly. They absorb things through their skin.
Yes. Yes, and they breathe a lot through their skin too, and they're tied to water because they have to lay their, in most cases, have to lay their eggs in water, and they have to be external fertilized in water. So what's in there can have an effect on the amphibians. But you know, as a kid, growing up on a farm, I loved getting tadpoles from the pond and bringing them into a goldfish bowl and watching them grow from a tadpole with a full tail no legs, gills, and grow the whole metamorphosis into an adult. They develop their hind legs first. You get excited, oh, they have hind legs coming! Okay, and then a little bit later, you start to have the front leg buds, and the body absorbs, the tail starts to get shorter and shorter, and the whole body morphology changes. And they eat mostly plant material, they're herbivorous. And as an adult, well, then you better have, by the time they reach adulthood, you've got to like lower the water and put a big rock or something in so that they can get up out of the water because their gills are changing to lungs. So it's really exciting. How many of you have done that? Tadpoles. I love
In
them.
elementary school, the teacher actually had one in the classroom.
Good, good. And they're great to have because they're really, I don't know of anybody allergic to amphibians. You know, they don't have hair, so that's another reason.
You don't need
But
to be-
we need to save the amphibians because our amphibian population is really declining. Okay, but anyway, that's a tadpole. That's a marble fish. It's my So metamorphosis. Okay, before I show you some examples, let's get into a little bit deeper stuff. I'm just going to, I think this is pretty well laid out here. Emily spent a lot of time on this, I can tell. So thank you again. Early embryonic development in animals. Animals have developmental genes. There we go. Have developmental genes that regulate the expression of other genes. These genes contain sets of DNA sequences called homeoboxes. Homeoboxes. And one of the main homeobox gene sets are the Hox genes, H-O-X. So whenever you see anything about Hox genes, we're talking about the developmental genes of going from the zygote to the metamorphosis. They play an important role in animal embryos, controlling the expression of other genes. They regulate the formation of the anterior posterior axis. So an axis would be like a line. We call the overall shape situation. Remember we talked about what cleavage is? So here's a zygote, which is formed from the union of the egg and the sperm. So you have both genomes being added together. And then it just starts dividing by mitosis without growth in between. And you end up with a solid ball, 8-cell stage, solid ball stage. That is called, that's a name for it, of course, it's called the morula. M-O-R-U-L-A. Continuing with cleavage, the next thing that happens is that you have a hollow ball, and that's called the blastula. Think of you as an animal as blasting into life. Okay, blastula. So it's up. Instead of having a solid ball now, it's throwing all the cells to the outside. And so now you have a hollow ball stage called a blastula. And there's a blastocele, which is the hollow portion inside. Then you start, there's an invagination, which means going inward at a certain point. And this process starts the process of gastrulation. And it becomes a gastrula. Okay, so here I have written zygote, morula, blastula, gastrula, germ layers, which make cells, tissues, organs, and systems to make up the entire multicellular organism. Okay, one of the next things that's also on the outline that we have is that there can be some animals are diploblastic, which means they form from just 2 cell layers in this stage. And there are many that come from 3 cell layers, and that's a triploblastic situation. And this is showing a diploblastic sort of, you have the outer part of, okay. Let me back up. Okay, I want you to not think of germs as always the pathogens that cause disease. Germinal layers, germinal cells produce other cells and other things. There are 3, in us, there are 3 germ layers, but on this particular diagram, it has an inner layer of cells at this stage called the endoderm, and look where it is. It's inside as far as it can be. And if you have an endoderm, what do you expect the outer to be? Ectoderm, because endo means inside, ecto means outer. An ectoparasite is a parasite on the outside of the body, like a fungus or something like that. So what we're going to see is in triploblastic animals, there will also be a 3rd layer, and with mesoderm in the middle, meso, and muscles and things like that come from the mesoderm.
Well, what are we in that?
We're triploblastic. Yeah, we have endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. Yes. So here, it's kind of showing you the 3 germ layers. This invagination area is actually going to end up being a part of the digestive system, if there is one, of some place for digestion, and it's called the archenteron. That's a word you might want to know, an archenteron. Well, is the invagination part during gastrulation. So it would be, okay, so it's just different. Or angle here would be this invagination right here. Okay, I'm going to go back to this first page and this bottom part of this first page and show you that in vertebrates, this would be like the backbone. end up with the endoderm being all the way in here as a tube. The mesoderm is all of this orangey stuff. And the ectoderm is the outside, and also the spinal cord and the nervous system will actually come from the ectoderm. So look at this, endoderm, gut, liver, lungs, come from the endoderm. There are many, many others too. We just kind of, I eliminated it down to like 3 or 4 different types of things because there's a long list for each one. Mesoderm, skeleton, muscle, kidney, heart, and blood. Think of it as being in the middle of the body. Muscle, meso, M for muscle, M for meso. Ectoderm, the epidermis of the skin and the nervous system. So the brain and the spinal cord, a little bit important. All right. So where did your gut come from? Which would be the whole gastrointestinal tract, your alimentary canal. Where did it come from? Ectoderm, mesoderm, or endoderm?
Endoderm.
Endoderm. And of course, there are a lot of really fancy steps that are taken in order to get to where you're going. Now I'm going to go back to this page. I'm going to go to this page now. And there are 3 types of body cavities. Okay, a body cavity, a true body cavity is called a coelom. C-O-E-L-U-M. A true body cavity is called a coelom, or a eucoelomate, sometimes it's called. And the arrangement in lower animals, the flatworms, this is a planarian, isn't it cute? This little flatworm here, its germ layers go this way. You have an endoderm, you have the digestive tract inside the endoderm, you have some mesoderm, and you have the ectoderm on the outside. It's a pretty simple arrangement. This is considered to be the least complex of the body cavities. Then there are, the next up from flatworms would be roundworms. And the roundworms have what we call a pseudo. What does pseudo mean?
Fake, false.
Fake, false, right. It looks like a coelom situation, but it's really a pseudocoelomate. And you have the endoderm, and then this actually, this cavity, so the coelom is really like the cavity, the open space. So you actually have the cavity between the mesoderm and the endoderm. So that's a pseudocoelomate situation. And then a true coelomate situation is you have it between the mesoderm. It's completely a cavity within the mesoderm. So it's got mesoderm on the outside of it, and it's got mesoderm on the inside of it. And so this is the most complex. It includes mollusks, annelids, arthropods, echinoderms, and chordates, which are the higher up, including the vertebrates. So this is sort of in between, and this is the earthworm. We will be dissecting an earthworm, and you think, oh wow, I dissected an earthworm before, but we're going to appreciate it a little bit more this time. So questions on the types of body cavities. So what are the 3 types of body cavities? Acoelomate, no real cavity, pseudocoelomate, and coelomate, or sometimes called eucoelomate. Yes.
Is this only true for invertebrates? These
No.
cavities? No.
It's well, yes. These two although there are invertebrates also in the coelomate category. Mollusks, annelids, arthropods, echinoderms, these are invertebrates, but they're the higher invertebrates. And then including the chordates, which that's the phylum that we are in. Okay, so. All right, so you're getting an idea how we develop things. We don't develop them, but how nature develops them. Okay, so. Okay, now, actually, let's go to this one. Let's add a little more lingo here. If we start with the eight cell stage, Marula, right? We have another set of terms called protostome and deuterostome. And these are two distinctions of animals on the basis of how they develop, where they develop the mouth, where they develop the anus, or when, first or second, and also how they circulate themselves, their new cells, which kind of angle and all that they go when they separate. So the cleavage, we're talking about cleavage here. Okay, now coelom formation, these are protostomes right here. And they include the mollusks, the annelids, and the arthropods. And some others too, but those in particular. The deuterostomes and all the chordates, which would include all the vertebrates. Their cleavage in the protostomes is called spiral and determinate. Don't worry about that just yet, but you'll be able to figure out a little bit later what indeterminate means. Determinate in terms of where they're determined to go, kind of. Coelom formation, differences. Schizo, which means splitting. Solid masses of mesoderm split to form coelom. And in the deuterostomes, interocoelous folds of argenteron form the coelom. And the fate of the blastophore. The blastophore is the first opening that evolves in this differentiation. And in the protostomes, and proto means first, and stoma is all. I mean, that's what it really means. Protostome is the first opening, and deuterostomes would be the second opening. And if you think of it as referring to the mouth, that would help. Okay, so the first opening in a protostome is the mouth. This is the blastophore. And then the anus is developed later. However, I know this may not make you feel real good, but the first opening in us and in all deuterostomes is the anus develops from the blastophore. So the anus develops first, and the mouth develops second. Thus, a deuterostome. Second opening is the mouth. Okay, so these are just how you can have these divided differently. So what I would like for you to point out to you here is also echinoderms are the starfish, the spiny-skinned invertebrates, and others. Combination of cells to tissues to organs to systems, organogenesis, and so forth. Should be very simple, right? There it is. I have a little note down here. It says, "Do not need to know details of this illustration." This is to make a point. Oh my God! Look. Oh my gosh! Okay. Oh my gosh! This is I'm just looking at retina up here. Okay, it comes from the neural tube, becomes an optic vesicle, and then the retina is formed, which is the inner layer of the eye. Where does the posterior pituitary come from? It comes from up there, which is part of the ectoderm. And all of these things have to be regulated to occur at the right time. Simple, right? Do we think that life is pretty miraculous?
Yeah.
Gosh, yes. So, and that I'm sure doesn't show all of it.
Yeah.
That just gives you a
That is.
so you don't have to know details, but your impression.
What should be? I just
Let's
want to
see
look
what
at
else.
just.
This is just showing you the diploblastic acetylomate, how it's related to each other, and this is increasing levels of complexity. So it sort of echoes what we've seen before. The coelom is surrounded by mesoderm here and mesoderm here in a true coelomate situation, and this is increasing level of complexity. This is just here to remind you, we studied this in evolution, but sometimes it talks about this clade as monophyletic, monophyletic, and just a reminder of what these mean. Monophyletic is one tribe, ancestor B, and all of its descendants, C through H, all come from the same one, and you're going to see that with a lot of the animals. And paraphyletic, beside the tribe, the ancestor and some of its descendants, the ancestor of some of its descendants, and polyphyletic, different ancestors and their descendants. So you have different ancestors, this one, different groupings. So just a reminder of the terms that if you read those in the textbook. All right, back to the outline. On page 2 of the outline, it gets into the logic time and the development of these different things. And there's a lot of good stuff here. I would say approximate numbers of years. If you say MYA, what's that mean?
Million years ago.
Millions of years ago. If it says BYA,
Years ago.
right, it's billions of years ago. And thus that brings us to, I'm going to jump back to the paper I gave you. And that is your Steve. It's not that you have to memorize the whole thing. It's just that it helps you to understand in the scheme of geologic timescale. And how do we know this approximate geologic timescale? How do we go about determining this? How? Carbon dating, yes. There's a half-life in carbon, and in a certain number of years, the half of the carbon is gone, and so forth. Some of these are so old, though, you'd have to probably use even other isotopes, radioisotopes beyond carbon. Yes? I'm sorry, what? Fossils. Thank you. Fossils in the various layers of rocks, and then carbon, or dating, D-A-T-I-N-G, just meaning the approximate time period in which it's from. I think I may have mentioned in here before to you that if you go down to this, we used to do field ice and so forth in some classes. If you go down to the creek bed that's over this hill, it's a pretty steep hill, you'll find all kinds of fossils. And I used to just live up the street, and I know when they built the community that fossils were everywhere. And the fossils are from the Ordovician, this area around here, are fossils from the Ordovician time. And they are all fossils that, it was an ocean here at that time. And so these are fossils of animals that lived in the ocean. And so about 450 million years ago, you remember that? How do we even put in a time frame how much a million years is? I mean, But let's look at some of the things that happened. We know that approximately 4.5, 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth formed. And somewhere between 2.5 billion or 2,500 million years ago, these are really millions of years ago, to 3,800 millions of years ago, the first true organisms that developed were that we actually have bacteria developing. The first unicellular life appears. This really truly is bacteria here, prokaryotes. And then finally later you got the photosynthesizing cyanobacteria, the blue-green algae, and producing oxygen. And off the outline I got somewhere around 560 million years ago, there seemed to be some evidence of some predation of animals that started eating other animals. That that predator-prey relationship. A predator, of course, hunts and finds things to eat, and the prey are the things that get eaten. We got cnidaria, which are the jellyfish and the hydras. Sponges, definitely. Mollusks, maybe. And some other soft-bodied. Notice there are several extinction events that are on here. I added them up. It's hypothesized that we've had at least 6 extinction periods that have kind of killed off whole bunches of life at one time for various reasons. Climate changes could be part of the problem. And then you see fungi up here developed. I just tried to pick out between 408 and 438, first land plants appear, the first jawed fishes appear, the first insects appear. I mean, it's just kind of interesting as you go up to see approximately when these different things appear. Angiosperms. Here, this is Pangea cracks around between 208 and 245 million years ago. Remember, the whole continents used to be connected. And Pangea, and this has a great effect upon evolution and the origin of species. And then it said around when the Pangea, the continent separated. The dinosaurs were dominant during the Jurassic period. That's why they call it Jurassic Park. Okay. And flowering plants didn't appear until way up here. By the way, down here in the Paleozoic, Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic, and then pre-Cambrian. But down here, the Paleozoic, paleo meaning old fossils types of paleontology. We have ages of invertebrates, ages of fishes, age of amphibians, but it's Carboniferous. Remember, this is where we had a compression of all the gymnosperms. There were lots of gymnosperms that were on Earth at that time, and the compression of it with the pressure produced the coal and the oil and the gas, petroleum products that are our natural resources today, and of course that we're constantly using up, and worried about trying to get new sources of energy. Okay, ancestors, not the real human, not Homo sapiens, but like Homo Neanderthal and Homo other types of ancestors to humans. Oh, by the way, first large mammals appeared about 65.5 million years ago, and then human ancestors appeared about 3 million years ago. And the earliest humans appear up here, and the Ice Age began. And we had glaciation, glaciers, and so forth. And you have like northern Ohio, northwestern Ohio. I went to school at Bowling Green and lived there for a while. And having come from a very hilly agriculture and beautiful woods and all that kind of stuff, and then to move to northwestern Ohio where it's flat as a pancake. It's due to glaciation.
Also, have you heard of Bowling Green is right in the center of what was formerly the Great Black Swamp? There was a huge range of swampland in northwestern Ohio and somewhat in the northeastern Indiana as well that was artificially drained in the 1800s to make way for farmland.
I am not
In
surprised.
fact, there are even evidence of old sandbars in Bowling Green city limits somewhere.
Huh, interesting, because it is pretty swampy up there, and it's so flat that the water just kind of sits. It's also sort of tornado alley out there, but it's a great school. But anyway, so use this as a reference to kind of have an idea about things, and continue looking at the stuff we didn't go into. But let's wind it up today. Thank you.